giving him his massage in one corner. I got some buckets and, you know, he wasn't deterred, you know. He was going to have his lunch and massage at the regular time, so he did it there, even in those conditions. So, other times though, when we had to make adjustments, of course, if you were on an aeroplane, then, you know, obviously we couldn't give Prabhupada his massage and his bath on an aeroplane. So still he would, you know, take them. But just like when we flew from Bombay to Melbourne, so we had to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning for the airport. This was on April the 18th. So Prabhupada had me give him his massage at 4 a.m. and then he had his bath at 5, and then he was ready to go by 7. And similarly, when we left Auckland on April the 28th, because of a very tight schedule, Prabhupada skipped his usual walk, took a short massage at 5:30 a.m. and then took his bath at that point. So there were a few interesting pastimes that we had with Prabhupada when he was bathing. One that he told us about, because we weren't there, this was in 1933. So very interesting, when Prabhupada was in Mayapur. This was on February the 21st in 1976. So he was giving a class and he was telling us about snakes. So he said, so long, long ago, sometime in 1933, in this Chaitanya Mat. Now the Chaitanya Mat's just down the road from our Mayapur temple. So he said there was a big snake that came out in my front. So I was taking my bath. Everybody was looking what to do. So Guru Maharaj, that means Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was on the upstairs. So immediately he ordered, kill him. So it was killed, means the snake. So at that time, 1933, I was a newcomer. So I thought, how is that? Guru Maharaj has ordered this snake to be killed. So I was a little surprised. But later on, when I saw this verse, so there's a verse in the Bhagavatam where it mentions about snakes and scorpions, that even a saintly person is happy when they're killed. So then he said, later on when I saw this verse, then I was very happy. Modeta sadhu api vrishchika sarpahatya. It remained a doubt. How had Guru Maharaj ordered this snake to be killed? But when I read this verse, I was very much pleased that these creatures, or creatures like the snake, they should not be shown any mercy. No. So that was a pastime. Prabhupada was bathing. And if you go to the Chaitanya Mat, that's where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's samadhi is. Now there's a house on the entrance to the property, a 2-story house. And that was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's residence. Sometimes you can go in there if you ask them to open it up. Anyway, there's a small veranda on the 2nd floor. So apparently Prabhupada was bathing, you know, just in the gardens there at the pump. And he was a new member. He only used to come out to the Gaudiya Mat now and again whenever he could get away from his work. So apparently he'd gone out, you know, maybe just for a weekend or something when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was there. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was out on the veranda. Prabhupada was bathing, and then he saw this big snake come right next to him. And then Prabhupada didn't know what to do. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta saw it. And he called the brahmacharis over and told them, take it away and kill it, like this. So, little bathing pastime there. Now we had a few other ones with Srila Prabhupada. On July the 4th, we, of course, were in Washington. And Prabhupada was staying in this bungalow. They just got this new property, the Potomac property. It was very expensive, about $600,000. About 13 acres of land, and it had previously been some kind of like a summer camp for kids. So what had been the gymnasium, the devotees had turned that into a temple room, and there was some kind of a broken down bungalow at the top end of the property there, where I don't know whether they used it for administration or it was some stables or something. Anyway, so the devotees spent $40,000 fixing up this bungalow, and that was where Prabhupada stayed when he came to visit. So everything was, you know, new, all the fittings and everything, and the bathroom had completely been redone and what have you. So anyway, on July the 4th, they'd given Prabhupada his massage, then he went into the bathroom. Now to get in the bathroom, You opened the door and there was a couple of steps going down, and so it was kind of a lower level than it was off from the bedroom. And then at the far end there was a bathtub. And in America they like this system where they have a bathtub, and then on the edge of the bath, going across, there's sliding doors, glass doors, and then you can either have a shower or you can just have a bath, like a full bath. So they put that kind of arrangement in. So I gave Prabhupada his massage. He went in, I closed the door, I'm just going out, of the bedroom, and then I got a shock because I heard this huge crash, the sound of glass breaking, shattering. So I ran back through the bedroom, not knowing what to expect. I opened the bathroom door and looked inside. Srila Prabhupada was standing in the bath at the opposite end of the room, looking very concerned and surprised. I looked down. In the gap between us, the entire floor was covered with 1,000 shards of shattered glass. Shocked, I realized that I was looking at Srila Prabhupada through the now empty shower screen frame. Right, the door, he closed the door, and the whole sheet of glass had just fallen out on the floor. So the bath and shower were combined. The shower door, a sliding glass panel, fitted along the top edge of the bathtub. Prabhupada had slid it shut, and the entire sheet of glass had simply fallen out. By Krishna's mercy, it toppled outwards and not inwards on top of him. So he was highly displeased, and he strongly criticized the shoddy workmanship. I fetched Brishakapi, the temple president, to get things cleaned up, and Prabhupada ordered him to have it fixed immediately. So a near disaster there, not quite. Now, another bathing pastime, this was really nice. That was when we went to Jagannath Puri in 1977. So Prabhupada had actually gone to Bhubaneswar, and he was to do the groundbreaking and foundation stone for the new temple in Bhubaneswar. That was going to be on February the 2nd, which was Lord Nityananda's appearance day. But we arrived there about, I think, the 20th of January, 19th or 20th. So we were there nearly 2 weeks. And when we arrived there, some of the devotees were not very impressed with the land that Govinda Maharaj had obtained. He'd gotten it donated, but at that time it was on the outskirts of Bhubaneswar, and the whole area all around was just like a desert. It was just this red soil with nothing growing on it for miles. And he'd got this little plot of land. He got a little thatched hut there, like a brick cottage with a thatched roof. The toilet was a hole in the ground, with a bamboo chatai, fence around it. And that was it. There was nothing there. And so when we came there, we were thinking, what are we doing here? This Jagannath Puri is just down the road. That's the real place, not Bhubaneswar. Why is he here? Anyway, Prabhupada was enthusiastic. He and Govinda Maharaj, they were the only ones that were actually enthusiastic about the place. But, there was a lot of talk about Jagannath Puri, naturally. Gargamuni Swami was there. He'd been scouting out different places in Jagannath Puri, and he found 2 or 3 plots of land that were actually up for sale. And also there was some offer of some land that the government was supposed to be giving us. But that also was very far away, from the city centre, and it wasn't nice. But anyway, there was a lot of talk about, doing something in Puri. Now, Prabhupada had previously told us, he said, I'm not going to go to Jagannath Puri again unless they allow my disciples into the main temple there. But then when there was this, chance to actually buy some land and build a temple, build our own temple, then Prabhupada relented. So finally, on January the 25th, then he agreed to go and spend 1 day in Jagannath Puri and check out these different places that Gargamuni Swami had found for him. So as it turned out, during the day, of course, we stayed in, they rented a room for Srila Prabhupada in this beachside hotel, it was then called the Tourist Bungalow No. 1. So we had a room upstairs. And we were staying there, and then in the evening we were going to drive back. And then what happened, this man came. He was a pujari from the main temple. His name was Sadashiva Rat. So he had a program the next day. He was going to inaugurate some Aryan translation of somebody's version of the Bhagavatam. So he was friendly with the devotees actually. And he saw there was an opportunity. Prabhupada's in Jagannath Puri. If I can get, Bhaktivedanta Swamis to come and be the chief guest at my pandal, that will attract more people. He'll come with his foreign disciples, and then people will come to the pandal. So he thought that was a good opportunity. So he came and he spoke with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada immediately agreed. So then we ended up staying overnight. So then the next morning, I get Prabhupada actually took his breakfast, and then he had his massage early. So after breakfast, this is on the 26th of January, and Prabhupada had his rest, then he called me in to ask him what I thought about his bathing in the sea. So we all thought that it would be a very good idea, as seawater is supposed to be good for the health and digestion, etc. So Prabhupada decided to try it. He had his massage in the bedroom, and then he walked down to the beach with his towel on over his gumshoe. A concrete flagged path took us 150 yards to within a few yards of the shore. Then, leaving his towel on the sand, Prabhupada stepped carefully down to the water's edge. All the members of the Namhata travelling Sankirtan party stood around him in the water, with Bhagavat Jaidama from Sydney, who had his camera, and other devotees all gathered around. So they were all already out there in the sea. They were body surfing and playing around and what have you. And then all of a sudden they saw Srila Prabhupada, come down to the seashore. So immediately they all came around. So they were all like in a semicircle around Srila Prabhupada, stood in the water. And Prabhupada was stood at the side, where just as the water was swirling in. So in Jagannath Puri actually you can get quite big waves. So I had to hold on to Srila Prabhupada as he was standing on the seashore there. And of course, when the waves came in, they were coming up to his knees. And then when they went out again, then, down to his ankles. And, because when you're standing on the sand, right on the shore there, it always moves. So I had to kind of hold Srila Prabhupada with one hand. And then when the water came in, Prabhupada started, reaching down and scooping up the water, just rubbing it on his arms. So then as he did that, then I started scooping up the water and rubbing it on his back and, to get the mustard oil off, and then some on his head and like that. So I started bathing Prabhupada as well. So then of course, all the other devotees, they immediately caught on. This is a unique opportunity. So Gagamani was there, Satsvarup was there, Guru Kripa was there, all the Namhata boys were there. And immediately everybody started, scooping up water and pouring it onto Srila Prabhupada. And Guru Kripa and his men, they were well known in the society. They used to chant hundreds of slokas every day. It was one of their things that they did. And so they started chanting the Brahma Samhita prayers. So the whole thing became like this transcendental abhishek. Everybody's pouring water on Prabhupada. Prabhupada was laughing. Because as far as a bath goes, I can't say that it was very effective. I mean, we're just splashing seawater. It was more just like a pastime. But Prabhupada really liked it. And at one point, Prabhupada reached down. He scooped up some water and he put it in his mouth to swill his mouth out, because it's seawater. He's not swallowing it. But he swilled his mouth out and he spat it out. And Guru Kripa was watching him. And as soon as he spat it out, his hand shot out, he caught the water, and he immediately drank it. Prabhupada laughed when he saw him do that. He really liked that. So it just reminded me, we're here in Jagannath Puri. Lord Chaitanya used to come down to the sea every day with his devotees, and he'd bathe in the sea. So there we were with Srila Prabhupada, bathing in the sea with him. It was just like one of Lord Chaitanya's water sports. So the whole thing was really nice. Anyway, it took about 10 minutes, and then that was it. Then Prabhupada had had enough. And, he put his towel on, and then we went back up into the hotel. Anyway, so that was probably the best. That was one of the nicest pastimes I ever had with Prabhupada, I have to say, that bathing in the sea there in Jagannath Puri. So now another aspect, of course, when I was with Prabhupada, he was fairly well, and he would bathe himself, you know, give him the massage. Then he would go off in his bathroom, and you know, he would do his ablutions, he would bathe himself, and then whilst he was doing that, you know, we'd set out the clean clothing for him, and then I'd set out his tilak and everything on his desk. So that changed after 1977 at the Mayapur festival, when Prabhupada got really ill. So when he was really ill, of course, he wasn't bathing, and then when he started bathing, he was so weak from his illness that he actually needed assistance. So we had to start, you know, bathing Prabhupada with a sponge. So the whole kind of schedule that Prabhupada had actually completely changed from about March 1977 onwards because of his ill health. And so, you know, after recommencing his massages, then for a while we were just bathing him with a sponge, and Prabhupada would just sit there and let us bathe him. And at that point, that was when I left Prabhupada's party. That was on March the 13th. So I saw that Prabhupada was kind of improving a little bit from his illness. And by that time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj had come on as the permanent secretary. Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who had just got initiated at that time, his name was Chirchora Gopinath. So he had just come onto the party. And Navi Yogendra Maharaj was there. He had previously been Prabhupada's personal servant. He was there. So like that, there was a number of people there to look after Prabhupada. And for myself, I'd been with Prabhupada for 16 months at that point. And I was actually starting to feel a little kind of stale. Things were getting a little bit routine. And I started to get worried that, you know, familiarity breeds contempt. I made a couple of little mistakes. They weren't big things, but there were things that Prabhupada had pulled me up about. So I started to think that, you know, I needed a break from the party. And so I think on March the 12th, I went to Srila Prabhupada and I, you know, kind of put it to him that, you know, I think I need a break. I need to do another service for a while. And, you know, I don't want to get inattentive and make offenses. So Prabhupada agreed. He said, that's good. He liked the fact that I was aware enough of what was going on, you know, that I knew I was making some offenses, and therefore I needed a change. So he liked that, you know, a bit of self-realization, I guess. Anyway, so he decided to send me back to Australia. So I left Mayapur, and then before going back to Australia, I had to get a new visa. In those days, I only had a permanent visa. Nowadays, I have a passport, but I had to get a new renewal of this permanent visa residency. So I'd gone to Delhi, and the plan was that Prabhupada was going to go down to Kodai Canal in the south and then try to recoup his health there. Then all of a sudden, we got a telegram saying Prabhupada's going to Bombay. So they had arranged for a pandal across Maidan, and it looked like Prabhupada wasn't going to go, and then at the last minute he decided he would go. So I flew down to Bombay to see Srila Prabhupada when he arrived there. So that was, I think, about the 22nd of March. So when he arrived, I saw Bhavananda Prabhu was with him. And so when I had dropped off the party, there was not really anybody who took up Prabhupada's massage. For some reason or another, Navi Yogendra didn't do it. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was Prabhupada's secretary. He had previously attempted to massage Srila Prabhupada on a couple of, at least one occasion. It was quite funny actually. What happened was because we were in Calcutta, and Prabhupada was looking at a flat that he wanted to buy for his former family members. So it was under construction. I'd gone there with him one day, and he'd looked around it. Then the next day, one of Prabhupada's childhood friends, one of the Mulliks, he came to see Srila Prabhupada at the temple. And so Prabhupada told me to go with him to see this flat, you know, just to check it out. He wanted his friend's opinion about it. So it was a little unusual because normally that kind of service was done by Prabhupada's secretary. You know, the servant was there for the personal, you know, items, doing the massages and all this kind of stuff. And any kind of managerial things, and that was done by the secretary. But somehow or another, Prabhupada wanted me to go with his friend. And it was just at noon, just when he normally took his massage. So then I said, well, what about the massage? So he said, well, Tamal can do that. So Tamal, to my surprise, Tamal Krsna Maharaj had never massaged Prabhupada before. So he was eager, you know, it was a good opportunity for him. I went off with this fellow. And then after about an hour or so, we came back. And when I came back, Prabhupada was still there in the bathroom, and Tamal Krsna Maharaj was still massaging him. So he had one leg left. He'd done the whole rest of his body. He had just his left leg left. And then Prabhupada said, all right. He said, now you stop, let Hari Sauri finish. So he had me get changed into my gum shirt just to do his last leg. Tamal Krsna Maharaj was laughing. Anyway, apparently later on, Prabhupada told him, he said that wasn't a massage. He said, he said that was a love pat. So Prabhupada liked really, you know, strong massages, you know, happy, good workout. Anyway, Tamal Krsna Maharaj was not that, you know, physical. So anyway, somehow or another, when I left the party in March, Tamal Krsna Maharaj supposedly was going to take over doing the massages. But then when I saw them arrive in Bombay, it was Bhavananda that was doing it, because he's quite physically strong. So he was giving Prabhupada his massages. And then I saw, after the massage, then instead of Prabhupada going off in the bathroom as he'd done when I was with him, and bathing himself, he was, because of his weakness, then Bhavananda was also bathing him. And he would sit Prabhupada in a chair, and then he would, you know, pour the water over and soak him up, and then, you know, wash the soap off and everything. So that was a change in, you know, Prabhupada's schedule there, as far as his bathing was concerned. So sometimes then, anyway, because of illness, Prabhupada would have to, you know, adjust his bathing habits and things like that. So let's see, there's a couple of... I mentioned Prabhupada only took one bath a day. Now I think previously to coming to the West, Prabhupada used to bathe more times, probably 2 or 3 times a day. I'm sure he was doing that. But what made him change was when he got sick in New York in 1967. And he mentioned that to us one time. This was January the 8th, 1977. Prabhupada was in Bombay. So he was talking about organizing the Gurukul and, you know, training the children up. So he was telling Jagadish, try to organize this Gurukul as a world attraction. He said that will be your success. So teach them nicely, English and Sanskrit. Our books are there. And regular habits. Going to the Jamuna in procession. He's talking about the Vrindavan Gurukul. Timely, get up early in the morning, attend class, clean dress, clean bedding, clean rooms, everything clean. Sikha Sutra. The Vamanadeva has given this description. So he just finished translating the 8th canto, and of course there's the whole story about Lord Vamanadeva's appearance there. So he was using that as a comparison, because he was the, you know, ideal brahmachari. So Prabhupada referred Jagadish to the story about Vamanadeva. And then Prabhupada continued on. So he was talking in general. He said that girls, they should be taught how to become a faithful wife, to learn how nice cooking, cleansing, dressing. Simple method. So there is no objection of their becoming a scholar, but it is not necessary. So they've got natural inclination to give service by cooking, cleansing, dressing. So cleanliness is the first necessity. That is hygienic, spiritual, and calm and quiet. So India has got special facility for remaining clean. Only in this country can you take thrice bathing. In the other countries, just like in your... But still, he said, it's easy there. In your country, now they have this hot water. So there's no difficulty if one practices. So I think our men, they have now such practice. But this cleanliness is this taking bath at least twice. That keeps a man very clean. So Jagadish said, yes, I've been taking 2 baths a day, and unless I have 2 baths, I don't feel clean. Sometimes I'm very busy and I don't get to bathe twice, and then I feel very dirty. And I mentioned, yes, I said, I don't feel clean if I don't have 3 baths a day. So from joining Prabhupada's party, what I actually realized was that, I had my morning bath, and then at 11:30 I had to give Prabhupada his massage. But very often Prabhupada liked to sit out in the sunshine. So what I discovered was that during the massage, I started to sweat a lot. And then of course when you sweat, you start to stink. So I got a little embarrassed, that I'm sweating and I'm massaging Prabhupada. And what I started to do then was I'd have another bath at 11 o'clock, just before the massage. And by doing that, then I didn't sweat as much whilst I was actually doing the massage. And then again, we were already accustomed to having an afternoon bath at about 5:30 or 6. So I just started having 3 baths a day when I was with Prabhupada. And, it just became a standard. So then Prabhupada, he agreed and he said, yes, so if it is practiced, it keeps the health very nice. He said, I was taking all along. So we were talking about 2 or 3 baths a day. And Prabhupada confirmed, I was taking all along. But since I was attacked hard, so then they said that you should be kept from catching cold. So from 1967 onwards, that was when Prabhupada started his new schedule. 1, having a massage every day, and 2, just only having 1 bath a day after the massage at midday. Not an attack incident in New York, because it was quite severe. It was at that point that he started having a warm bath. So his system at that point became, he would have 2 buckets. And whilst Prabhupada was bathing, in India of course, generally there was no running water, hot running water. So whilst we were massaging Prabhupada, then I'd break off, at a certain point, and I'd had, already set up a brass bucket with water and one of these immersion heaters, like this stick heaters that you put in. And then at a certain point I go over and switch that on, and then by the end of the massage, there'd be a bucket of quite hot water. And then I'd take that in the bathroom, and then Prabhupada would mix that with cold water till he got the right temperature, and then he would bathe with that. But before that, as we say, he was taking cold bath, and at least 2 or 3 times a day. Now there were some occasions when he stopped bathing altogether. He mentions this in a couple of letters that one letter I saw from 1967. This was after the heart attack. He had written to Mukunda, and he said, I came to the seashore in New Jersey, and I am progressing well. Today I have taken shower bath for myself for the first time since getting ill. So when you get ill, then you can't always keep up the standards. And similarly, when I was with Prabhupada in 76, in July in New York, then Prabhupada had got this very heavy cold, and he immediately had to make some adjustment. So on July the 20th then, it seems that every time Prabhupada holds a big initiation, he becomes afflicted with some kind of physical ailment. Now he has a heavy cold, which is worsening. It was bad enough today to warrant him deciding not to have his usual massage with oils. Instead, he had me give him a dry one so that he would not have to take a bath. So he skipped his bath because he had this heavy cold. A couple of days later, we had arrived in London, very, very sick, getting off the aeroplane. And he spent the first 2 days actually just in bed. So on July the 23rd, at Bhaktivedanta Manor, after taking a very small amount of fruit for breakfast, Prabhupada complained of exhaustion. He rested for a long while. His cold is now subsiding, but only after continually coughing up mucus for the last 2 days. He is still very, very weak, but he took his massage for the first time since our arrival, although he continued to wipe himself down with a sponge rather than take a full bath. So that was another adjustment that he did. As soon as he got a little better, then immediately, he went back to his usual bathing standards. Now, another little incident was in September, a couple of months later. We were in Vrindavan. Prabhupada received some news about one of his godbrothers. He got a letter, who he said had become so ill that he could not even take his bath. But Prabhupada mentioned that point to me particularly, because it was a Hindi letter, I didn't see the English. But he said, just see, he's so ill now, he's old. He said, and he's become ill, he cannot even take a bath. Okay. He shook his head ruefully at the incapacity of old age. So that's a couple of things about Prabhupada's bathing. Now we'll have a look at some other forms of bath that Prabhupada mentioned. One was interesting about the yogis and how they bathe. So this was in the class in Mayapur. This was February the 15th in 1976. So in this morning's class, Prabhupada described his ambitious plans for showing the higher regions of the universe in the Vedic planetarium that he's proposing for Mayapur. So he told us, there is a Siddha Loka, so we shall show how this planet works, Siddha Loka. So the description of the Siddha Loka is there in the Bhagavatam. The Siddha Loka persons, they can go from one planet to another without any machine or aeroplane. Like the yogis. So those who are perfect yogis, they can go from one place to another without any vehicle. Still, there are many yogis still existing, so they take bath in 4 dhams, Haridwar, Jagannath Puri and Rameshwaram. So similarly, the yogis that they can do that, they attain this Ashtasiddhi, or the 8 types of perfection. So the Siddha Loka means that they're born siddhas and they haven't got to practice this mystic yoga process. So he said there that the yogis, they take bath in 4 different places simultaneously. Even now in India, there's still yogis that can do that. So in Haridwar, all the holy places, they go, they dip down, and they take the bath in all the rivers at the same time. They have that mystic perfection. Or they can go down in, the Jamuna, and they come up in the Ganga, or, like this. I once asked Prabhupada, actually, I was trying to figure out, how do they do that? Is it like they go into meditation, and then in their subtle body, maybe they go and, travel around to different places? Because in your subtle body, you can travel at the speed of the mind. So, every day you can go and bathe. I was thinking like that. So I asked Srila Prabhupada, said, do they actually do this, bathing in all the holy rivers? Do they do that in their subtle bodies? Prabhupada said, no. He said, in their physical bodies, that body. So they have that ability, no time and space. If you get these mystic perfections, you can do these things. So that was a little bit about bathing. Any questions up to this point? Comments?
But what about the remnants of the Lord's spiritual master? It's good, it's good to take, but like what's happening?
The remnants of the spiritual master. What about it?
The remnants of the prashadam. Why this etiquette to take what's happened to us? To purify ourselves.
Okay, if you take the remnants of the spiritual master, what happens to them?
The devotee.
What remnants? You mean the prasadam remnants, or any remnants?
Yeah.
You get purified. That's all. That's Maha Prasadam. Yeah. Actually, when we were traveling with Prabhupada, he made a point of telling us that, we can't monopolize his remnants. Yeah. When Prabhupada finished eating, then the system was that all of his prasadam would be mixed together, and then it would be distributed to the devotees in the temple. And he made a point of telling that, just because you're my servants, it doesn't mean that you get all the maha. It has to be distributed. But it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's mentioned there that the remnants of the deities, that is Mahaprasada, and the remnants of the spiritual master, that is Mahaprasada. Although, when we questioned Prabhupada about it once, there was an incident between Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Hari Cash. I think this is like February of '76. Prabhupada was again, he'd had his lunch, and we were sitting on the veranda, at least myself and Srila Prabhupada. And then we heard all of a sudden all this shouting and yelling, and then a door slammed like this. Prabhupada said, "What is that? Go and see." So I went round the corner, and Tamal Krsna Maharaj's room was just there. So I went in the room, and he's sitting there. He was completely agitated. He had a plate of prasadam in front of him, but he couldn't eat because he was so agitated. And then Harikesh came back in. He'd been in there, and apparently, he'd got on Tamal Krsna Maharaj's case for taking all the remnants from the pots that had been cooked for Srila Prabhupada and, making up his own plate with that. So he had been given instructions, that all the prasadam had to be distributed, Prabhupada's remnants. And he felt that meant, what was in the pots as well as what had come off Prabhupada's plate. Now, Tamal Krsna Maharaj, when he had first arrived, he got permission from Srila Prabhupada that he could take his prasadam from the same pots, from what was cooked for Prabhupada. Because he said that the rice in Mayapur that the Bengalis like to eat was a very kind of coarse grain variety, and he couldn't digest it well. Prabhupada only ever ate basmati rice. So he asked Prabhupada, "Can I take my prasadam, from what was cooked for you?" Prabhupada said yes. So anyway, he'd gone in the kitchen and helped himself to what was in the pots. Harikesh was the cook. And he didn't like it that he was taking what was in the pots. So he came up and he started berating Tamal Krsna Maharaj whilst he was eating and getting on his case about it. So there was a big fight. Harikesh had stormed out the room, slammed the door, and then, came back in again when I was in there and started shouting at him again. So Prabhupada called the two of them, to come and sit down with him. And then they discussed the whole thing. Then Prabhupada, he kind of resolved the situation. He said, actually, it's a fact that all the remnants, they should be distributed to all the devotees. And he said it's all right also for Tamal Krishna to take the prasadam from the pots. And then he said, actually, the food that's in the pots, the food that's on the plate, it's the same thing. It's all Maha Prasadam. And I asked, well, isn't there a difference? There's Maha, the remnants of the spiritual master. That's Maha Prasadam. So Prabhupada said that's just a technicality. He said it's all prasadam. He said it doesn't matter what it is. It's all prasadam. Like that. Anyway, so he kind of settled the thing down. But the point is that, there's a lot of benefit from eating the remnants of the spiritual master or any saintly person.
But, we did this with Srila Prabhupada, and we can do this also with now that there's no more Srila Prabhupada other devotees.
Well, I'm saying any saintly person, you get some benefit if you eat their remnants. That's a tradition. It's in our line. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Narada Muni, with the permission of the Bhaktivedanta that he was staying with as saintly persons. He had the remnants of their prasadam. He said only once, but that purified it, just that act of doing that. So, Any other questions or comments? Yes, please.
Was it permitted to reheat prasad?
Well, the reheating of prasadam, it's always been a kind of one of those ambiguous can we or can't we things. I never actually asked Prabhupada personally about this, but the standard, at least in those days, was that if it was Maha Prasadam, that means whatever's come off the plate, that's not allowed to be reheated. You have to honour it as it is. And there may even have been some directive from Srila Prabhupada that, if you reheat it, the implication is that it's not fit to eat when it's cold, but when you heat it up, then it's okay. So, as far as I remember, you'd have to check this out, but there was some kind of a directive that Mahaprasadam has to be taken as it is, and you can't reheat it. You have to honour it as it is. But there was also a sanction for people to reheat the devotee prasadam. Right? And somehow or another we have this distinction between devotee prasadam and deity prasadam. And I've personally never really understood that. How we have the deity kitchen and then we have a devotee kitchen. When what's cooked for the devotees has to still be offered to the deity anyway. I never figured out the difference. But somehow or another, a lot of temples, they have like a much lower standard, for the so-called devotee kitchen than they do for the deity kitchen. I can't figure that one out. It was, it became a practice anyway. Yeah, okay, reheat the devotee prasadam, and but not the maha prasadam of the deity plates.
I remember we used to help cook the man. We used to make so much harder on a Sunday because somebody gets it. Then for a full week, they would just reheat this halva. And then Bhagavan came one time because he was so national. And you could actually kind of split it and it was solid. And I thought, it was so hard.
Yeah.
That they would just reheat it.
From a cleanliness point of view, it's very unhealthy to reheat foodstuffs. Because you can say, all right, it's all prasadam. It is. You probably get still the spiritual benefit, you will. But, you can't, let's say, take prasadam that's a week old and it's got, mold and fur on it. If you eat that, you're going to get sick, even if it is prasadam. So there is still, a question of cleanliness as well. As Prabhupada said, everything has to be fresh. That's the whole point. Otherwise, you can't maintain yourself. So, you can't be too fanatical. Of course, if you're very, very advanced, like you read about Raghunath Das, he stopped eating. When he first went to Puri, then his parents would send so much money and he would have these big feasts all the time. Then he started feeling that was wrong. So he stopped accepting the money. And then he was begging in the street. And whatever, he could beg, that was what he was living on. Then after that, then he started feeling like a prostitute, begging from people. Then he started eating all the rotten prasadam that had been rejected from the Jagannath Puri temple. It was washed out on the floor, washed out through the drains. And he would catch, all the rotten rice. And then he would wash all the rotten portion away. There would be just some little kernel left. And he would collect a little bag of that and grind it up, and that was what he was living on. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with that, but that, it's a very, very advanced position to be in, to be able to live like that. Most of us can't do that. Okay, it's 9:20. Shall I go on a little bit more? All right. Okay, a little bit about lotus, because bathing lotus. Everybody knows what a lota is, right? So January the 13th, 1976, today was Ekadasi. Prabhupada was in Calcutta. So he took his morning walk along the Ganges. Hundreds of pilgrims were down taking their dawn bath, having come for the Ganga Sagar Mela. So in January, mid-January, they have this big festival. Tens of thousands of people go for it. The Ganga Sagar Mela. That's at Kapil Dev's ashram, which is in the Ganges Delta there, in the Sundarbans. So there's one island there, Ganga Dweep, and they have this, it's supposed to be at the ashram of Kapil Dev, Lord Kapil Dev, and they have this big mela. So many thousands of people were on the way there, and they're all there and, bathing at the side of the Ganges. So this is right on dawn. Prabhupada explained that Sagar means the sea, so the mela is a spiritual gathering on an island in the Ganges estuary. Evidently, eager pilgrims had travelled from as far away as Rajasthan in the northwest. They were all camped out along the banks of Mother Ganga, washing their few possessions, as well as themselves, in the holy waters, unmindful of the boats and other river traffic passing by. They sat contentedly on the pathways, cooking breakfast and drying out their clothing. So, they'd have one gamsha and one dhoti, and go down and bathe, and then wear the gamsha, stretch out the dhoti on the ground, let the sun dry it, then wrap themselves up again when it's done, and then dry out the gamsha this way. Every day they do like this. So noting the shining lota that one man was carrying, Prabhupada remarked that if even the lota is so clean, then we can understand how clean he must be personally. He also recalled how he and his mother used to come and bathe in the same spot when he was a child. So anyway, Prabhupada always used to make that point, that in India, even the poorest man, you will see them every day. They never fail to take the bath. They keep everything spotless. He saw this man's lota, nicely polished and clean. And they take a little mud and just rub it and clean it up and wash it off. Everything has to be clean. He said that is Indian culture. So again, on March the 16th then, there was another lota incident. This was in Mayapur. Prabhupada was walking up on the roof of the Lotus building. So there are a lot of potted tulsi plants up there. So Prabhupada kept to his regular schedule, walking first up on the roof, then coming down to walk around the grounds. Prabhupada's attentiveness to every detail is nothing short of amazing. As soon as he came out into the cool morning air on the rooftop, he noted a lota that was standing next to the freshly watered tulsi plants. None of us thought anything of it, but vexation immediately crossed Prabhupada's face. He asked one of the devotees to check to see if there was a lota in the toilet room. No, Prabhupada, was the reply. Prabhupada shook his head. He recognized the lota as being the one that he had been using in the toilet. Just see, aparadi, offender. They have used that lota for watering. Great offender. This is going on. Malachas and Yavanas. The thought of using a contaminated receptacle to water Srimati Tulsi Devi was abominable to him, and he warned us to make sure that it does not happen again in the future. One who has used that, he said, he has no sense how to water the Tulsi plant. He should be instructed, you never use that toilet lota. It was yet another indication of our lack of Krishna consciousness. Obviously, some of us still think about Tulsi Devi as being a mere plant, but Prabhupada is fully conscious of her exalted position. So as soon as he came up, he saw it there. He knew it was his toilet lota he was using. Again, a little conversation in Iran. Prabhupada was talking with the Treya Rishi, and he was asking him about the Iranian people and how they live. So this was on August the 9th. He asked the Treya Rishi if there was much fighting amongst the Iranian people. Not so much, the Treya Rishi told him. They're not as peaceful as the Indians. They're not as pious as the Indians. Accepting his judgment, Prabhupada said, yes, they cannot be. In India, still, you'll find hundreds and thousands of men are going to take bath in the Ganges in the morning. They may have only one cloth and one napkin. Still, they will take bath twice with the napkin, and then they'll change the cloth and wash it and spread it out on the ground. By the time he has finished his bathing, the cloth is dry. So this is India's advantage. And he puts some fresh cloth. The napkin then is also dry. And then he'll become refreshed. And in his lota, he'll take some water of the Ganges, and then he'll go home. So in Vrindavan, you'll find many thousands in the morning. They'll go with the lota, evacuate somewhere, and then wash the hands, mouth, and with cloth, take bath in the Jamuna. So this is the, people are habituated to that standard. Again, another lota pastime was in Hyderabad. This was in August. Later on in August, it was about 9 days later, we were in Hyderabad for the temple opening there. So in the early morning, Prabhupada rang for me. Although I had supposedly cleaned his rooms, he noticed that his silver lota was tarnished and the balcony was covered in a thick layer of dust. So he mildly reminded me that it was my service to tend to these things. He said that if I didn't do them, then he had to see to them himself. I sheepishly concurred. I had neglected the polishing of the silver lota because it was a task that was normally taken care of by the cleaning crews that were supplied by the host temples, and I thus paid it scant attention. And although I had swept the floor of the room, I had neglected the small balcony, thinking that it would not be used. I am getting a little dull, but Prabhupada is as sharp as ever in his observances. So I saw the lota, it had a couple of fingerprints on it. And normally what happened when we went to a new temple, any temple, there was always, a group of devotees that were eager to come in and clean Prabhupada's rooms. So I very rarely did that. Prabhupada would go on his morning walk and he would always want me there, I was recording, and he would make sure his personal entourage was with him on the morning walk. Whilst we were out walking, then, the temple devotees would come in, they'd clean all the rooms, change the sheets, put fresh flowers, just polish everything up. Occasionally in India that didn't happen.